Hello and welcome to this webinar. Our session today is designed to support your preparation for Strategic Business Leader exam. Whether you're preparing to sit this exam on paper or as CBE version. My name is Jelena Green. I am Head of Education for Western Europe at ACCA, and I'm really pleased to be joined by Christodoulos Papas, lecturer at Cyprus College, School of Professional Studies, one of our Platinum approved learning partners. So before we get on with the session, I will just go through a number of practicalities. So first of all, just to say that we recommend that you watch this webinar using Google Chrome, just for best viewing experience. And on the webinar platform, you should see a number of icons in your browser for navigation and just to signpost view. So there is a help feature which includes frequently asked questions and any troubleshooting suggestions in case you encounter any technical problems. I would also like to draw your attention to the resource list. And this section has a number of useful resources that will further support the insights you will hear in this webinar. Q&A Messenger will allow you to communicate with us, and we will do our best to respond to any comments or questions. However, I can see that this session is quite well attended, so we are unlikely, unfortunately, to be able to answer to absolutely every question or comment. But we will do our best, and just also to mention my colleagues, Catherine Moore and Michael Cannon, they have also joined this session specifically to help support, respond to any of your questions or comments that come throughout this session. So at the end of the session, there is going to be a short survey. So as always, your feedback would be really appreciated and valued. And finally, to say that on-demand recording of this session will also be available, and you should receive a link to access the recording, so that should come within approximately next 24 hours. So in the next part of the session, you will hear advice relating to Strategic Business Leader exam from our guest speaker, introducing and referencing the new format of the examiner's reports, as well as sharing his own insights based on personal experience in helping many students pass this exam over the years. So this advice will cover exam format, performance insights, both technical and professional marks, of course, and the exam approach. And towards the end of the session, I will briefly discuss with you the relevance of our ethics and professional skills module before we move to the questions and answers. So in this last section, I will put some of the questions that you have already sent to us through the registration form. So I will put some of these questions forward to Christodoulos to answer for you. So now it is my pleasure to hand over to our guest speaker, Christodoulos Papas. And Christodoulos has more than 30 years of experience in teaching professional courses, both in Cyprus and abroad. And he also held a number of senior managerial positions in commercial and financial banking organizations, and has worked in auditing profession both in Cyprus and in the United Kingdom. Christodoulos currently teaches a Strategic Business Leader exam at the School of Professional Studies in Limassol in Cyprus. So Christodoulos, thank you so much for joining us.
Hello to everyone. I welcome you all to today's webinar. Thank you for joining us. I would also like to thank Elena for the great introduction and for giving me the opportunity to make this presentation to you today. It is an honor for me. The ACCA is famous for its support resources to students. Today's webinar is one example of these resources which aim to help you pass your exams. As already shown in the agenda, our webinar will evolve around the examiner's reports of the SBL paper. Right. This is the starting point of the examiner's report. As you probably know, these reports by our examiners are very useful tools for students, extremely useful as a matter of fact. They are published after the actual exam papers and their answers are published. It is advisable that for your preparation for the actual exam, you do a number of past exam papers for practice under exam conditions. After you finish each paper, you should read carefully the recommended solution as well as the examiner's report for the specific paper. This is a must. This will enable you to perform better in the next past exam paper you will do under exam conditions, and most certainly it will prepare you very well for the actual SBL exam. Moving on, what you see here, this slide helps us to see at a glance, on only one page in a summary, some of the main issues, the SBL essentials, for which we will talk about today under the different parts of our agenda. Things like technical and professional skills, tackling the exam, tips for success, and so on. Right, now we move on to see the SBL exam format. This is the format of our paper. As you already know, it's a 4-hour exam. That's 240 minutes. It's rather unusual, not similar to what you've been used to so far. It is one integrated case scenario, and all the questions are compulsory. Okay, so you have to do all of them. It's 100 marks divided into 80 technical and 20 professional skills marks. And you see the format of it is made up of 4 elements: the overview, the list of exhibits, tasks, a mark allocation, and exhibits in detail. Okay, just for 1 second, let's look at it very quickly. Yeah, let's look at the actual paper so you refresh your memory about what it's all about. Okay, just give me a sec. Here it is. That's a sample paper from the September-December 2020 questions. And it's made up of, let's look at it very quickly, so we put everything into perspective. This is the overview, which is made up of normally 2, 3, 4 paragraphs. I'm going to explain a little bit later what we do with those. Then below it, we have the exhibits, the headings of the exhibits. And then that's normally 1 page, the total of those. And then we move on to 2 or 3 pages, and we look at the tasks, the case requirements with the allocated marks and everything. And that's basically what it is. And then the last bit, last part of our exam paper is the exhibits. Normally the exhibits are in the region of 6 to 8 normally. Normally also they are about 1 page long, approximately. So that's basically exhibit 1, exhibit 2, and it goes on. Okay, it's only just for us to see it.
And apologies, Christodoulos, if I can just very briefly interrupt. Just for clarification, in this webinar we have students from many different countries around the world, and I think majority of students joining this webinar will be attending this exam on computer as a computer-based exam format, but there are still a number of countries around the world that where the transition to CB hasn't yet taken place. So just for clarification, Christodoulos will obviously, so that's fine. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elena. What we are gonna say, how we tackle this paper, it applies to everybody, but we are gonna spend a little bit of time for those who are taking the computer-based examinations as well. But apart from that, the rest of the principles we are going to discuss apply to everybody. Okay, right. So based on this format, I'd like to, as you probably know, just to stress to you that the SBL exam is different to anything most students have experienced before. Strategic thinking, business direction, problem solving are important issues in SBL. The 4-hour paper focuses on the application of knowledge in a strategic context. I stress that, application of knowledge, but always considering the strategic issues. Candidates may take different roles in different contexts, so you have to be careful with that. In each and every task, sometimes you play a different role. Your examiner asks you to play a different role. We are going to expand on those in a little while. So the skills assessed are more practical in SBL and analytical also, rather than academic. So as you have seen, it is made up of 4 elements: the overview, the list of exhibits, the tasks, and the actual exhibits in detail. But I want to stress to everybody that SBL is a very practical paper, right? And I stress that. Theory alone does not take you far in this exam, and please remember it. Solving an adequate number of exam-style questions will increase your chances of obtaining a pass mark. So the best recipe for passing is do exam-style questions under exam conditions. Okay? Good. Let's move on now. Here we are. We have a poll question at this point. So let's have a little breath and try to answer this poll question. How long should you allow for reading and planning time in the SBL exam? As you can see, there are 3 options for your answers, and you can choose the one you prefer by clicking on the corresponding bullet point. Then you press submit. The poll is anonymous, but we can all see the actual end result. So please go ahead.
Christodoulos?
Yeah, yeah.
Are we okay to move on?
Yeah, I was just waiting to see whether they have all completed their
Sure.
answer. Just giving them a couple of minutes.
Okay.
All right, I think we've got the most likely answer. Here it is. You can have a look at the answer you've given. The huge majority of you suggested 40 minutes. And obviously, we are going to see this in slide 12 in a little bit. We are going to discuss in detail the subject of this poll question. So let us move on. SBL exam performance, very crucial, yeah? Let us see in detail what you need to do when you practice past exam questions and in the actual exam as well. So whatever we're going to say today and now is very relevant for your preparation as well as for your performance in the actual, during the actual exam. So let's move on. Here we are. I put there for you some details about the SBL exam performance, but please allow me to analyze it a little bit more thoroughly for your benefit. As we have already mentioned, the SBL paper has 4 hours duration, 240 minutes. You should spend 40 to 60 minutes, as the majority of you have suggested in the question, for reading and planning, right? 40 to 60. Some of you may manage in 40 minutes, but it is also okay if you spend 60 minutes in reading and planning, okay? But definitely, and I stress that, not more than 60 minutes. So for the actual writing of your answers, you would have approximately 180 to 200 minutes, 3 hours and a little bit, yeah? What do you do then for your mark allocation and your time allocation? You divide the 180 or 200 minutes which is left for your writing, you divide it by 80. And I stress that only the technical marks, 80, not the professional skills marks, all right? And I'm gonna explain to you later why. So what do you get? 180 divided by 80, you get approximately 2.25 minutes. Or if you have 200 minutes, it's 200 divided by 80, 2.5 minutes per technical mark. And that's how you start your planning. You allocate the time allowed for each and every task depending on depending on the technical marks it carries, right? So I repeat again, do not allocate time to the professional skills marks. And we are going to see that later, why we do that. Okay, so what are the steps we should follow then? Let's go through them gradually and in detail. I'm just expanding on the notes you see in front of you. The first step, obviously, you go through the overview, the first thing we saw on the actual paper. Read through the case overview slowly and carefully. Why? Because it will help you to understand the organization and the context to which the exam is set. Gives you a lot of background, useful background. So make sure that you fully capture it all. Read it slowly and carefully. It's only maximum 3 to 4 not long paragraphs. Then we move on. Just below it, as you saw, we have the list of the exhibits, right? So what do you do as step 2? Go through the list of the exhibits. Read the headings, in other words, of the exhibits to understand the format and the information given. Each one of the exhibits will give you a different information about the organization. So make sure that you initially, at a quick glance on the list of the exhibits, you get a feeling as to what it's all about. Examples of the information given in the exhibits ranges from financial data, minutes of meetings, newspaper articles about the organization, positive or negative, and so on and so forth. So you get a feeling as to what it's all about. Then step 3. Step 3, reading the tasks, right? The requirements. It's very important for the SBL paper that you have a clear idea of what you have been asked to do. It has to be very clearly in your mind as to what you are required to do. We're going to see that in a minute. So how do you do it? Read all the information in the task. And very crucially, and please pay attention to this, you have to understand who you are in that specific task. I mean, who you are. In other words, what your role is. Also, you have to understand within that task what you are required to do, what your examiner has asked you to do. And thirdly, again, you have to make it clear in your mind which your target audience is. So, what is your role? What you are supposed to do, right? Okay, what is your role? What you are required to do, and for whom? And therefore, you are going to have to answer your question in accordance to all those. All right? That's very important. Then, in reading the tasks, another important issue, okay, you have to identify the tasks and the verbs used, the verbs, all right? That's important. Regular verbs used by our examiner is evaluate, discuss, recommend. But also, there are subtasks, right? There are also subtasks within the main task. So please bear that in mind. Don't ignore it. There are marks allocated to it. Right, and then what do? You allocate the time available. You do your planning immediately, okay? How many marks? You also have to consider, when you read the tasks, the requirements, the appropriate number of points you need to make, right? So you have to determine at this early stage, how many points am I going to raise for this part? Also, you have to look at the professional skill being assessed. And for each and every part, at the bottom of it, you are given a couple of lines for the professional skill which your examiner asks you to apply. And as you probably know, the professional skills examined in our paper are normally 5: communication skills, commercial acumen skills, analysis skills, evaluation skills, and skepticism skills, right? But only one of them is examined for each part of the question. And also bear in mind, as we've already said, time is not allocated for the professional skills marks. Why? And that's why we are answering now the initial point we made. Because you will build professional skills into your answer. As you answer it, the professional skills will be built in it if you do it properly. And we are going to see how you are going to do it. And lastly, when you are reading the tasks, the requirements, you have to identify at this stage any models or frameworks which will help you with these tasks. So you bring it into the picture, the relevant models, if any, okay? So you have the full picture of what you are required to do, and also how you are going to do it. Having done all those, we move on to step 4. Remember, we are still at the reading time of our exam paper. And we know that we have anything between 40 to 60 minutes to do it properly, as we are describing it now. Right, we reach the exhibits now, each one of them. Once we do all the above, we read the exhibits. Here, we need to be very, very careful. We need to be active readers of the exhibits, right? They are long, they are tiring when you look at them in the first instance, but you have to be a really active reader when you do that. What do we mean by active reader? Okay, yeah, well, read it critically. Read it with determination. Why? So that you understand it and evaluate its relevance to the actual requirement, the actual task, right? You have to get the main meanings and the main implications appearing in the exhibit, in each and every exhibit. So you have to read it actively. No, don't be a passive reader. Don't you think that you are going to read it again and again and you are going to go back to it and so on and so forth, right? Now, when you read it, you have to have all the case requirements firmly in your mind, which you cover under the tasks which we explained a few minutes ago. They have to be very clear in your mind. So have them firmly in your mind when you start reading the exhibits. And I repeat again, and I advise you, you only read through the exhibits once, carefully and in detail. What's your objective with that? To assimilate the information in the exhibits. So you read it carefully, in detail, and assimilate the information. And obviously, by reading them, you must and you have to identify any links to the tasks, all right? That's the important bit. And highlight any key points. So, how do we read them? Do we read them in sequence or do we read the exhibits whichever way we want. No, our advice is that you should read the exhibits in order. Why? Because by reading them in order, it will provide you context. Okay? Your examiner has put them in that order on purpose. So read them in that order, please. Lastly, for the exhibits, something which I want to stress also is that you may find that for a specific task, specific question, a specific exhibit is the most relevant one. This happens often, but sometimes you may use material from one exhibit throughout the various tasks and the exam. So never assume that for a particular question, a task, only one exhibit applies. Normally, this is the case, but you may find other information in the other exhibits. Okay? Right. Having finished the reading, as we described it, always within the 40 to 60 minutes, there is one additional step and task you have to do within those minutes, which is what? Your answer planning. Very crucial. So you complete the reading and do your answer planning for all the tasks in the exam, all of them. This is very, very important. The plans, as you probably know, in every action of our professional life, our personal life, if you plan better, you perform better. So the plans will help you to structure your answers effectively. So within those 60 or 40 minutes, make sure that you do your planning properly. I stress it. Right. And here we are at the writing stage, the writing step. After an hour or so, reading and planning, or 40 minutes or whatever. So start writing, yeah? One principle which you have to follow is stick to the mark and time allocation. Don't overdo it. Keep looking at the clock. Answer all the requirements and also answer them in the order set by your examiner, right? Please bear this in mind. It makes life easier for the markers, okay? So all the requirements are answered in the sequence asked by the examiner, okay? And we make an effort to answer all parts of all requirements. Don't leave anything behind. Allocate your time properly. Stick to your time allocation. Be very strict with it, okay? Now, as you raise the points, always substantiate what you say, right? Always. Be specific to the scenario. Do not make general or irrelevant points. Do not repeat points. You're not going to get any marks for those. Also, something which a lot of students keep forgetting is the following. Do not forget to write clearly at the beginning of each of your answers to the left-hand side of the page, the number and the part of the question you are answering. For example, 1A, 3C, and so on. And lastly, for this, for the writing part, the overall message is what? For this last step. Write effectively. That is important. Write effectively. Okay, let's move on. Let's have a look now as to how we can earn the technical marks. As we have already seen, there are 80 technical marks out of a total of 100 to be earned in the SBL exam. And we are going to examine what you need to do in order to earn the marks required for passing this paper. 80 marks, yeah? Here we are. I put on the slide there, I put some notes about how you should go about earning the technical marks in a summary format. Let's expand a little bit on those. Right. Remember, and please always follow it, your answers should always evolve around the case scenario. Right? Always remember that and always apply that. Explanation of theory does not score marks in the SBL exam. So forget about it. Also, pre-learned knowledge cannot be the basis for an answer. Often, students' answers are about any organization, general answers. However, generic answers score very limited marks, so avoid doing it. You are going to waste your time. You are not going to get marks. Avoid writing generalizations. The points you raise in your answers for each and every part and each and every sub part of the questions, so the points you raise should be supported by facts from the actual scenario, right? Like anybody in real life, a professional, a senior manager in his work is going to give practical suggestions, right? Not theoretical. You are expected to do the same, right? Okay. I'd like to mention to you here that there are no tricks in our paper. Everything is there for candidates to read, understand, and use properly in their answers. No tricks. What you read holds true. So use the information in the exhibits to make tailored points. In other words, make points in your answers which are specific to the case scenario. Always remember this, please, right? Each point you raise should be substantiated, right? So say why. However, please avoid writing long answers, right? Raise a point, substantiate it, and move on to raise more mark earning points. That's very, very important. You have to remember it and apply it all the time, right? Raise a point, substantiate it, but not with long answers, and move on. Why? So you raise more points to claim more marks. It's so obvious. That's what you need to do to pass, right? It is also very important that you carefully consider the verb used by the examiner in the requirement. And I've already mentioned that to you, but I'm going to give you a couple of examples, right? Let's give one example so we speed up the process a little bit. If you are asked to analyze financial data, yeah? Okay. You must include an interpretation of your calculations. Just stating that a number has increased or decreased is simply an observation. It is not an analysis. And it's surprising how many students ignore that. And they say in their answer, the income increased from last year, and but the expenses also increased, and they say nothing else. I repeat again, this is simply an observation. To gain marks, you have to give an analysis of it, right? In other words, state that increases or decreases, they should be discussed regarding the reasons for their occurrence and the implications for the organization. Then you get the marks. And believe me, in practice, with my students, I've seen it time and again in the tests and the mock exams, they do. But then they improve, thank God. So the verbs used in each question will be used to probe your knowledge and your ability to demonstrate this appropriately in the context of the case study. So please do it. Right, moving on. Earning professional skills marks. Let us now examine what you need to do in the exam in order to earn the professional skills marks, which, as we have already seen, are 20 in total. Right, let's move on. This is the detailed slide I gave you. I gave you some key points, I think, but I'm going to expand a little bit on those. The first thing you should do when you answer your question, you should give emphasis on the actual professional skill being tested in the specific task, as asked in the last two lines of the task by your examiner. And as we said, it could be communication, commercial acumen, analysis skills, evaluation skills, skepticism skills. If, for example, you are asked to demonstrate skepticism skills, then you have to go deeply into the reasons behind the problems. You have to question and challenge opinions as well as information given to you in your role in the specific task. But remember this, always in a professional way, always. In this way, you will demonstrate this specific professional skill requested in the task. So the first thing you have to do to gain the professional skills marks is to tackle the actual task as asked by your examiner. All right? Let's see. Let me give you another example in addition to the skepticism. Let's say, which one shall we take? Commercial acumen. Let's take an example of commercial acumen. So the professional skills mark asked by your examiner is show professional acumen. How do you tackle this question? You have to show awareness of the wider business and external factors affecting the organization, using commercially sound judgment and insight in order to identify and resolve problems and exploit opportunities. That's commercial acumen, right? You're going to see all those when you do all the practical questions of exam standard anyway. So moving on, for the professional skills marks, in addition to claiming the actual professional skill mark asked specifically by your examiner, to gain all the professional marks, you should also demonstrate general professionalism, which means what? As you give your answer. Answering the question set. I know it may sound a bit funny, but in numerous occasions, our examiner has stated that there were candidates who were not answering the question set. They didn't understand the question. So the first thing is answer the question set. Second, give a logical and well-presented answer with appropriate headings and the appropriate format. What do we mean by format? If, for example, you are asked by your examiner to give a report, then obviously the format should be from, to, date, reference, a heading for the reference, right? And introductory paragraph. That's a format. Do it. Or in another example, if you are asked by your examiner to prepare slides and notes, then do both, not just one or the other. Do both. And again, it's also surprising how many times students give you only one or the other, not both. Right? Other things necessary for you to demonstrate your general professionalism and claim the other additional professional marks are avoid unnecessary repetition. We've already discussed that. And also use an appropriate tone for the recipient. You also need to explain points that will enhance the understanding of the recipient. Remember, you are conveying a message to the recipient. You are writing a report to the recipient. Yeah? You have to convince him. So give points in a persuasive, clear, and logical style and appropriate tone. That's just to summarize it. Also, by reading the technical and professional requirements together in the task, will assist you to formulate your answers in the correct level of professionalism, style, and tone. The exam, the reason I'm saying this is because the exam is structured in such a way that professional skills marks integrate with technical marks. So you need to concentrate on both of these types of marks. And lastly, I'm just repeating myself, but I feel that you have to bear it in mind because lots of you forget to do it. Please remember to indicate at the beginning of each answer what part and what task of the question you are answering. Right. Okay, then. Here we reach the computer-based exam. For those of you who are going to take the exam on a computer, right? We look at some issues which you need to be aware of specifically. Let's have a look at them. Here they are, right? During your preparation stage, how do you practice your questions? Obviously, you take all the mock exams or your exam style questions on the computer, not manually. Remember, I'm referring to those who are going to take the computer-based examination. The rest of you who are going to take the manual paper, right? You do it the normal way. But the rest of you who are taking the CB exam, take all your mock exams, all your exam style exams on the computer. Why? Because this will help you to practice as to how to deal with the various exhibits and how fast and how much you can write in the time allowed. If the format you use in your answer, right, is not as per the requested presentation format, and I'm coming back to the format again, which we discussed extensively before, then this will have an adverse effect on the professional skills marks awarded. Why am I saying this? Because in your last examiner's comments about the December exam, surprisingly, he mentioned that, not that he mentioned it, what the students did was a surprise. A big number of them taking the CB exam didn't use the proper format, especially those taking the CB. Surprise, yes. Strange, yes. Well, please be careful. So I thought I'd stress it to you. Also, if you need, you can use some facilities which exist in your system, like, for example, the spreadsheet function, the slides and notes facilities, and so on. Obviously, the spreadsheet function will enable you to undertake financial analysis. The slides and notes facilities, on the other hand, will help you to structure your answers effectively. All of them are designed to help you answer questions in a more effective manner. So use them if necessary. Also, some students cut and paste in their answers information from the exhibits. Yeah, do it. Do it. This may help you to keep more focused on the actual task. But, and I stress that, if you do not comment on this cut paste information, if you do not comment on it any further, if you do not add anything to it, you may not be awarded marks. Therefore, explain why the information is important in the context of the task requirement. And please bear this in mind. Okay? Moving on, the way forward. What we are going to do in the next 2 weeks and during the exam day. That's crucial. That's very important. Okay? I divided this into 2 important issues. The first deals with how you should spend your time in the most efficient and productive way from today until the actual exam day. So you have 2 weeks. The second deals with what you need to do during the actual exam. Both will help you to perform well in the actual exam and pass the SBL paper. So let's move to the first one. Preparing for the actual exam on the 2nd of March, 2021. How? My advice to you is do as many exam-style questions as possible. Try to complete the study or revision of the theory as soon as you can. Why? Because you should spend most of your preparation time of the next 2 weeks until the actual exam day in doing past examination questions and other exam-style questions. That's where you should concentrate on from now on. Excuse me. All obviously, when you do those questions, you should do them all under exam conditions. Be disciplined. Do them under exam conditions, 4 hours. Assume that they are, each one of them is the actual exam paper. Do it that way. In addition to the other obvious benefits, if you do that, this will also help you to develop your concentration, your thinking and writing skills that the SBL exam requires. After each paper you do, then you go and read the suggested solution. In addition, you should also read the examiner's report if the specific paper was a past exam paper. Then you don't finish there. Then you go through your answer and pay particular attention to where you lost marks and why. In other words, mark your paper. See where you went wrong. Should you have gone wrong? Or you didn't take it seriously? Or you didn't fully understand the issues? All right? All these together will help you to perform better in every new paper you take. Please remember that candidates who practice past exam questions perform notably better than those who do not. Therefore, do even more exam-style questions, and even more. By doing this, you help yourself to perform better in the actual exam, and therefore, you raise your chances of passing the SBL paper. So, the last advice for your preparation for the next 2 weeks, since practicing exam questions is key to passing the SBL exam, please spend your time in doing that from now on. And I think the message is clear and loud. Right. Here we are. The actual exam. What do you do in the actual exam? Each and every point I put there is there for you on purpose, right? I hope it makes sense. They all make sense. But let me expand on them in a different way, because you can read them and they are very clearly stated and they are very short. Remember, what is your objective? It's obvious, yeah? You want to be in the pass list of candidates, not in the fail list. So, during the 4 hours of the actual exam, you must give your best self. Remember that. Give your best self. Doesn't matter if just before the exam commences, you are really tired because you were anxious the night before, you didn't sleep enough. Forget it all. You go there and be a fighter, all right? Give your best self. That's your duty. That's what you've been working for all the time, and it's worth it. So if you work hard and do a lot of exam-style questions during the 2 weeks from today until the exam day, then obviously you will know what to do in the actual exam. You will also know how to do it. So please make sure that during those 4 hours, you actually do it. Claim and get a pass mark. That's your duty. To achieve this, during those 4 hours, you have to manage the available time efficiently and in relation to the mark allocation. Remember, be very strict with that. Don't leave any question or any part of a question unanswered. Do them all. And also do them in the sequence asked by the examiner. A key action in the actual exam is, and I'm stressing it to you again, and I want you to remember it, and please, I want you to apply it in the exam. More points, less comments. but you should always substantiate the points you make. Not with long, extended answers and comments, but substantiate what you say. I repeat it again, more points, less comments, but substantiate the points you make. This is a way for you to get the marks. If you state one point and you substantiate it perfectly in half a page, but you raise no additional points, obviously you are not going to pass, because presumably the task requires you to raise at least 5 points. Well, you have to decide what you want to get, a pass or a fail. So more points, less comments, but always substantiating the points we make. Then we move on and generate more mark scoring points, right? Keep fighting throughout the 4 hours. Never give up, right? Even if one question is hard for you, don't worry, try to answer it. Use your educated common sense at the end of the day as a last resort, if you feel that there is nothing you understand here. But always remember, this question, if it's hard for you, it is also hard for the majority of the other candidates. Well, make sure that you answer it as properly as you can, but don't give up, right? Never give up. Keep fighting throughout the 4 hours, okay? You have to claim a pass from your examiner. You have to convince your examiner through your answers that you deserve a pass. Okay. I now hand you over to Elena, and then we come back to answer some of the questions. Sorry.
Thank you so much for this, Christodoulos. It's been really great to hear these insights and encouragement from you. Okay, I am just going to spend really few minutes going over the benefits of ethics and professional skills module for Strategic Business Leader exam. So just before I do that, can I ask you once more to engage with our poll question and just tell me where you are with this module, whether you have completed it or you're maybe working through it now, or you have completed previous professional ethics module before the current module has been introduced. So I can see some of you are busily answering this question, so thank you so much. I'll maybe wait for a few more seconds. I see that 50% of you have responded already, so I'll just wait a few more seconds to get a few more responses. Okay, thank you very much. I am just going to move on to the answers. So it's good to see that a good number of you have already completed the module. Some of you have worked through the previous version of this module. 24% of those of you who responded are currently working through the ethics and professional skills module. So it's really good to see that vast majority of those of you who responded to the poll have in one way or another engaged with this module. So most of you will be well aware of the importance of the professional skills for Strategic Business Leader exam, and of course Christodoulos has talked about that in the last hour. So the tasks in the SBL exam require you to apply your technical understanding and professional skills in integrated way, as you've heard earlier. So while they carry 20 marks within the exam, professional skills also open the door to earning the other 80 technical marks. So the ethics and professional skills module will supplement your technical knowledge by helping you develop the ethical and professional behaviors you need to be successful in the, all of the strategic professional exams. So it's made up of interactive learning, support and assessment units, and we now know it's very well documented that students who completed ethics and professional skills module are significantly more likely to also pass strategic business leader exam. So the reason why completing ethics and professional skills module increases your chances of success in strategic professional exams is because it helps develop skills that you need to demonstrate at this level. So within the current version of the module, there is Unit 9, and this particular unit was actually created specifically to illustrate this relevance more clearly and to show you how you can use the knowledge from the module to maximize your chances of success in these exams. So we'll notice in this section 9, it's dedicated, there is a section dedicated to each one of the strategic professional exams. And when you go through strategic business leader section, you will see that each unit of ethics and professional skills module will bear some relevance to strategic business leader exam. And here in this unit 9, you will see this illustrated further through examples from past exam questions, which are used to help you see this linkage more clearly. So even if you have completed the module, it may be useful revisiting some of this content, as in the SBL exam, you will be required to demonstrate a range of professional skills demanded by the effective leader. So worthwhile, engaging with your module if you have time, of course. I know it's only 2 weeks before your exam, but, referring back to this module, even when you need to give yourself a break for some of the other study activities, this may be another way of helping yourself develop the way of thinking that will come very useful in your exam. So what I'll do now is I will go back to actually put forward some of the questions that we have received from our audience. I am going to put some of these questions forward to Christodoulos, so to further gain from his advice. So Christodoulos?
Yes, I'm listening.
Thank you. So the first question I have selected from those questions that we received from students in advance is, I am resitting SBL, having previously failed this exam with 45% in March 2020. I need to know how and where to pick up from here. What would your advice be to this student, Christodoulos?
Okay, picking up from here, presumably for the exam in 2 weeks' time, presumably. The best way...
Yes, I think it's safe to assume, yeah.
Yeah. As already discussed, the most important thing you can do to pass the SBL paper is to practice exam-style questions. That's where you should spend your time productively. Spend some little time to refresh your knowledge of the syllabus, but most, if not all, of your preparation time in the next 2 weeks should be spent in doing exam-style questions, always under exam conditions. Please remember, practicing exam questions is key to passing.
Thank you, Christodoulos. Yes, practice makes perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so the second question, is it correct that generic points will not score marks if they cannot be linked back to the scenario? I think this is something you have discussed in your presentation, but it's worthwhile maybe just reaffirming your advice.
We expanded on that. Okay, so generic points, yeah? As we've already mentioned, when we were discussing how technical marks can be earned, the answer to this question is generic answers score very limited marks, if any. So avoid writing generalizations, things about any organization, theoretical issues, and so on. The points you raise in your answer should always be supported by facts from the actual scenario. Full stop. It's so simple.
Thank you, Christodoulos. Okay, next question. What is the best way to find the most important useful information when we are provided with lots of exhibits and find most of it useful, but there is no time to be able to use every single bit of information?
Right, yeah. That's, again, we covered it under the presentation today, but it concentrates on a specific skill. Let me just put everything into perspective. It's obvious that the question of this student relates to the analysis skills. In other words, the ability of students to select relevant information to answer task requirements. This ability for this particular student needs to be improved. How? Let's look at how can we improve. The requirement, the task, in other words, is a key issue here. Why? Because it gives you direction, so you have to fully understand it well. So before you start anything else, you have to fully understand the requirement. Okay, it will give you a clear direction. If you understand the requirement well, it will enable you to identify and use the most important, relevant, and crucial points of the exhibit. That's answering the other part of the question, okay? The more important points of the exhibit or the exhibits, yeah, relating to the requirement. You will also be able to link relevant information from different sources and exhibits. So do that, okay? The best way to develop your analysis skills, obviously, is by doing more exam-style questions.
Okay, thank you, Christodoulos. And the next question, I have seen this speculation about how without using models, you can still do enough for comfortable pass. Is this true?
All right. Without using models, yes, okay. Well, as we have already seen in the presentation, explanation of theory and of theoretical models alone does not score any marks in the SBL paper. That's very clear. You should always apply syllabus knowledge to the context of the scenario. Your answer should evolve around the case scenario in a practical manner. That's a principle. If you do this, but also use an appropriate model, then this may help you to write a more structured answer. But the model you use should be the one applicable in the question, okay? All right? Not any model. And that model, but always answered in a practical mode as per the data in the case study, then it will help you to give a more structured answer. Having said this, however, since the answer has to be practical and be applied to the circumstances of the specific organization in the scenario, even if you do not use an appropriate model, but you raise all the relevant points which appear in the scenario and are expected by your examiner, and you then discuss and support them, then you get your marks. I hope I answered this question.
Thank you very much. And last question we received actually in advance is, it is the one that was also covered in the presentation, but I will put it forward to you just in case you want to add anything further. So this question is, how long should we spend for reading and planning, and how should we go about it?
Okay, yeah. We covered it under slide 12 when we discussed the time to be spent for reading and planning. Remember, 40 to 60 minutes, I'm stressing this in case you didn't, some of the students didn't fully understand it, is for the actual reading and planning together, okay? 40 to 60 minutes, but no more than 60 minutes. So you should read all the parts of the paper in an active manner, very carefully and in detail. You should have all the case requirements firmly in your mind when you are reading the exhibits. All right? Assimilate the information in the exhibits during the reading time and identify any links to the specific tasks. That's not theoretical, it's practical. Think about it. Then you should spend time in actually planning your answers, right? Planning, we stress that. To plan effectively is really, really critical. In your planning, you should consider the marks and the different points you need to make in order to achieve these marks. Normally, it is 1 mark for each paper. 1 mark for each point, yeah, normally. But as we've already seen in the previous presentations, okay, there are up to 2 marks per point, yeah, under the technical marks. Sometimes you can get 2 points if you fully answer the actual point properly. So allocate the time available for each task. Remember, proper planning prevents poor performance. Put it in your mind and always remember it. So spend time in actual reading as well as planning, 40 to 60 minutes. If you do the reading properly, and you also do the planning properly, it will prevent you from performing poorly. It helps you to perform better.
Thank you very Thank you very much for this. And Christodoulos, we you answered all the questions that we received previously. We have also received a number of questions through our Q&A messenger during this webinar. So Catherine and Michael did pick up quite a number of these questions. Some other questions we answered because they were similar to those that were pre-submitted, but we do have time for maybe one more question. So I don't know if I can actually let you have a look through the Q&A box and perhaps pick a question yourself that might be a good to finish with.
I've seen that all of them have been answered, and thank you for that. It's just from what I see, we have answered most of them, haven't we? From what I see. Let me see what we can say. How many points do we make per question to get the marks? Obviously, it's down to the actual requirement, and as we've already mentioned, the more points you make but substantiate, the more marks you get. All right? So bear this in mind all the time. But normally, not always, it's 1 to 2 marks per point. All right? And you look at, obviously, the technical marks to allocate your time accordingly and the points you raise. Right, let me see anything else. Just a little bit no.
And Christodoulos, I don't know you. I don't know if we have actually time, but earlier on you used commercial acumen as one example. I don't know if you would like to maybe use another one of the professional skills as an example to finish off.
Professional skills marks, you mean, Elena?
Yes.
Okay. Well, as a communication, for example, communication.
Yes, that would be good.
Yeah, you may be asked to make a report, or you may be asked to give presentation slides for the target audience, whatever that is. It could be the board of directors, anyone. To communicate properly. How can you communicate properly? Very clearly, convincingly, through the appropriate method you use, slides or report or whatever. Always bear in mind, as we said, about the needs of your audience. So try to inform them, right? How do you inform them? Very objectively, not having ambiguous arguments in your presentation, okay? All right, be very careful with that. Also, try to clarify and simplify any complex matters which may be conveyed in the information. Clarify them, simplify them, okay? And lastly, use logical arguments to persuade whatever you want to say. Persuade your target audience to do your suggestion, okay? All right? And to persuade, obviously, you have to argue about counter arguments as well, Use those as well. And then state what you believe is best. Use logical arguments.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Christodoulos. So I think with this, we can nicely bring this webinar to the close. Christodoulos, thank you so much for being our guest today, for sharing all these valuable insights, as well as your enthusiasm for Strategic Business Leader exam. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you. Thank you, Elena.
And also, sorry, please go ahead.
Do I just have a minute to say something to the students?
Of course, please.
Just 1 minute. Please remember, in the actual exam, dear students, please remember this. In the actual exam, feel confident, be calm, and keep moving. Keep claiming marks. That's your duty. Never give up. Your task during those 4 hours is to show to your examiner through your performance and your answers that you deserve a pass. That's all I had to say. I wish you all the best of luck. And thank you for your attention and your patience. Thank you, Elena.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And also once more to say thank you to Catherine and Michael for all the help with Q&A support. And to all of you watching this webinar, thank you for your time. Well, we wish you the best of health and hope the next 2 weeks will be really productive, and of course the best of luck on the actual exam day. So thanks once again, and bye for now.
Bye.